Okay, welcome everyone for the PLSQL lecture. So today we'll discuss about stored functions. So we have talked about the stored procedure and stored function. So logic wise, there is no difference between writing a code the way you are writing a code in procedure, same way we write a code in a function. Then what's the difference between the procedure and function? There are a few differences that we have to learn in stored functions. So first of all, let's say functions are the type of store code and very similar to the procedure. The difference is we can return n number of parameters through the procedures as an out, but function has to return a single value. Simple. Function has to return a single value. Function can accept one, many, or no parameter, but function must have some return clause. It should return something in the executable section of the function. The data, okay, one more thing. In procedure, we are returning the data with the help of out parameter. But in function, it is supporting a return clause. So in the return, whatever value we are returning, that will be returned by the function. So simply you have to understand one thing. Function can accept one, many, or no parameters. So parameter does not make any compulsion here. But function must have a return clause in executable section of the function. Simple. And whatever the returning, that data type must be declared in the header of the function. What you are returning, that must be declared in the header of the function. A function is not a stand-alone executable in a way that a procedure is. It must be used in some context. Now, you might have heard about the name of the function, that sub-str. It is always in a context of some string from it is returning the substring. It is not a standalone. It is always in a context of something. A function has an output that needs to be assigned to a variable, or it can be used in a select statement. Second major difference is procedure can be used only as a procedure, cannot be used in a select statement. Whereas function has to be, function is allowed to use in a select statement. Simple. And whatever function is returning, that must be assigned to some of the variables. So simple here. So it's very simple. We have learned the function in SQL lectures. That was a system defined function. Same way, you can write your logic and you can create your own function that is called a user defined function. So simply, function does not necessarily have to have any parameters, but it must return the return value that declared in a header, and must return value for all varying possible execution stream. What's the meaning of that? Even if exception occurs, there also it should have a return value. So wherever it is a possibility that it is coming out to the source environment, it should have a return value. The return statement does not have to appear as a last line of the main execution section. So it is not compulsion that you can use with a conditional control. Wherever you want to return, you can return it. That you are very expert in writing a logic. So function is also allowed in, out, or in out parameters. But I have rarely seen anything except in parameters in the function till now. But technically it is allowing in, out, or in, out as well. Now how to write a function? Same way, we have written the procedure exactly in the same manner. We have to write a function. Only little difference. Let's pay attention here. Create function, function name. Can I say till here it was the same like a procedure? We have written create function, create procedure, procedure name. Here we will write a create function, function name. Then list of parameters. Along with the list of parameters, we have to have additional thing, return, and the data type for this. Now, what you are returning, you may return a date, you may return a number, you may return a character. So according to that, you have to write a return data. Then as, and after the as, you will see everything is same. Correct? There is no major difference. So no need to worry about this thing that I know to write a procedure, how to write a function. Both are similar stored code. Only the difference is one is independent and one is written in some context. Procedure may or may not return any value, but function has to return a single value. Procedure cannot be used in a select statement, but function can be used in a select statement. Simple, that's the difference between the stored procedure and a function. Now, how do we write? Create or replace function, function name. Parameter list, return data type is begin. And you can write your logic, and then here you can say return and your return value. That return value could be a variable, could be a static, depends on your logic, what you want to write it here. So this is the only difference between procedure and function. So once you know how to write a procedure, you know how to write a function. So if you just go through what we have learned from the beginning, in the same manner we write an anonymous block, in the same manner we write a procedure, and in the same manner we write a function. Simple here. No need to go for the example here. How to use a function. Function can be used in two ways. One, you can call it in a select statement. Select, we can use a function name and input as a column name. So this column name will be the input and function will perform the action and it will give a return according to the function. So this function can be used in a select statement. If you want to use in any block, then we have to say that you have to declare a variable and function has to pass the variable to that particular variables. That's it. The rest I have just written for to show that everything you understood properly now. So simply we can say that declare one variable, data type, begin, then we say variable assign the value, function and input value. Function and input value. Simple here. So this function will pass the value to this particular variable and you can use that variable wherever you want. So writing a procedure and writing a function is very similar. So I don't think any question is there for function. Only difference is a return clause. Now we'll talk about the most important part of PLSQL, and the final part is called a triggers. Now what is a triggers? Triggers are nothing but same like a stored procedure. Only difference is that stored procedures are called whenever you make an execution of that procedure, that time that procedure get executed. But triggers are automatically triggered, so it can execute implicitly. That's the only difference. Simple to understand here. A trigger is a special type of stored procedure that is executed as a part of data modification. Data modification is nothing but a DML. So you can write a trigger on a specific table for a specific DML action. Now, whenever on that table that DML action will happen, this trigger will get executed. And that trigger will automatically executed as a part of that DML action. DML action is nothing but a insert, update, and delete. Insert, update, and delete. Simple here. Now, why the trigger is required? So basically, a trigger is mostly used for a complex column constraints, cascading some referential integrity, inter-database referential integrity. Now, for an example, you want to refer something from somewhere. So if you want to refer from something from somewhere before inserting, so you have to have a program that what value is getting inserted that must be checked with other tables. So for that, you can write a triggers. Simple. So we can simply say trigger is also nothing but it is a kind of stored procedure, which is implicitly or automatically get executed whenever triggering event will happen, which is mentioned in the program. Triggering event is nothing but either insert, update, delete, or all. You may write for insert, you may write for update, you may write for delete, or you may write for all. Simple. So unlike a stored procedure and function, they are not explicitly called, but they are activated when the triggering event occurs. So I hope it is clear what the trigger is. Now, how to write a trigger? Writing a trigger is a very simple task. Now, whenever you write a trigger, first statement will be the same. But here we will have some additional thing in the headers. So create or replace trigger name. Same like create or replace procedure or create or replace function. So here we are saying the trigger. But this trigger is not independent. It has to be written on some specific table on a specific DML statement. So we have to write create or replace trigger name before or after. You have to choose one of them. What is the before and after? Now, let's say I want to write a trigger for insert. So whenever the insert will happen in that table, this program will automatically get executed. But when you want to execute the program, before inserting the record or after inserting the record. Now, sometime we want to check the data and then we want to insert in the table. So at that time, it will be the before. Sometime you want to copy the same data in some other table or insert in some other table. So that can be done only after. So you can choose whether before or after based on your requirement. So let's see what the syntax is. Create or replace trigger name before or after. Then we say the DM element clause. So this is not a keyword, right? You have to say before insert, before update, or before delete. This is just for you understood here. So, and on which table you are using. So now this trigger will associated with that table for insert, if you are used for insert, right? Then you say the begin, and after the begin, you know how to write a logic. Simple here, because it is same starting from the lecture 1, that how to write a block. So block will be the same for procedure, for function, for triggers. Simple here. So let's see how to write it here. Now, when we say that trigger, you have seen that here we have two types of trigger. One is a before and one is after. That means one trigger will execute before and one trigger will execute after. If you are mentioning before, the program will execute before the DML action, or When you're choosing the after, this will execute after the DML action. Correct? Now this trigger is further divided into the two parts: row level trigger and statement level trigger. What do you mean by the row level and statement level? Now row level and statement level meaning is same. Row level trigger will only execute if the row is affected. Affected means what? You have executed an insert statement and that is completed. Insert is done. Then only this row level trigger will execute. And statement level trigger means what? Whether record inserted or not, but somebody has tried to insert, this program will execute. So that is a row level trigger and a statement level trigger. So you can see that here also I have written, they get fired once for each row in table affected by the statements. Row level triggers is fired each time row is affected by insert, update or delete command. If statement doesn't affect any row, no trigger action happens. मतलब जब तक एक्चुअल में रो इंसर्ट नहीं हुई है, अगर आपने इंसर्ट के लिए यूज किया है तो, एक्चुअल में रो अपडेट नहीं हुई है, अगर आपने अपडेट के लिए यूज किया है तो, अगर डिलीट के लिए, अगर एक्चुअल रो डिलीट नहीं हुई है तो ये आपका ट्रिगर एग्जीक्यूट नहीं होगा. सो दिस इज जस्ट डिसाइडेड कि आपका ट्रिगर एक्चुअल रो अफेक्ट होने के बाद ही ट्रिगर होना चाहिए या फिर किसी ने स्टेटमेंट एग्जीक्यूट की तो भी ट्रिगर होना चाहिए. तो अगर किसी ने सिर्फ स्टेटमेंट एग्जीक्यूट की और अगर कोई रिकॉर्ड अफेक्ट नहीं भी हुआ तो भी ट्रिगर एग्जीक्यूट होना चाहिए, मतलब आपका प्रोग्राम रन होना चाहिए. सो दैट विल बी कॉल्ड अ स्टेटमेंट लेवल ट्रिगर. मतलब आपने स्टेटमेंट एग्जीक्यूट की तो आपका प्रोग्राम एग्जीक्यूट होगा. सिंपल हियर. सो नाउ इट हैज बिकम अ 4 types of triggers: row level trigger before, row level trigger after, statement level trigger before, statement level trigger after. Correct? So now the types of triggers. So how many types of triggers has become here? 4 types of triggers: before statement, before row; after statement, after row. Correct? Now simply I have given some extra things here also, naming them. How to name them? It must be unique within the schema. It can have the same name of a table also. So that is not much important because we know that how you're going to name the trigger. So can I say simply the concept of trigger is clear here? Now, inserting, deleting, updating can be used to find out which event is occurring. Okay, so how do you find out that you are writing for insert, update, or delete? So how do we write a trigger? Very simple. Create or replace trigger, trigger name after insert or update on employees. So by looking at this, what you understood? That this program will execute either on insert or on update. When? After. Actual insert या update होने के बाद ये program execute होगा. So this is the headers completed. Then begin. Now you have a special keyword called as a inserting. So if inserting, then what you have to do? Because you have mentioned the 2 things here, insert or update. Correct? So आपको दोनों के लिए तो same action नहीं चाहिए. So if you want to define the action, you can choose these keywords: deleting, inserting, and updating. So here you can choose if inserting, then this, else, then this. If updating, then this, else, this. So these 3 keywords are allowed only in triggers. That is inserting, updating, and deleting. Very simple here. So I hope it is simplest thing to understand how the trigger is. So trigger is nothing but the same kind of program what you have written as a function, procedure, but only difference is this cannot be implicitly executed. It explicitly executed on the event on which you have written. अगर आपने insert के लिए लिखा है तो जब insert होगा तभी ये प्रोग्राम एग्जीक्यूट होगा. अगर आपने अपडेट के लिए लिखा है तो जब अपडेट होगा तभी ये एग्जीक्यूट होगा. सिंपल हियर. That's the simplest thing about the trigger. Simple. This is the important part. कौन सा इवेंट पे आपको क्या करना है. Now there are two types of triggers. One is a row level trigger and one is a statement level trigger. What's the difference between the row level and statement level trigger? Row level trigger execute for number of rows affected with your statement. If you are updating something and it is updating the 10 rows, so your trigger program will execute for 10 times. Correct? And row level trigger is, statement level trigger is, statement level trigger will execute only once, even if you have updated n number of records. उसी में एक ही बार execute होगा. So simply there are two types of triggers. How we decide that? For each row. As soon as you write a for each row special statement, it will become row level trigger. So the number of row will affect with your insert, update, and delete. That many times your trigger will get executed. So simple. So this is for each row. This is a statement you can mention in your header part. Simple. So there only it will be finding out how it is going to work. Very simple to understand. So one trigger can affect many rows if it is a row level trigger. कितने बार execute होगा जितने rows affect होंगे. That's a row level trigger. And statement level trigger per statement once. आपकी statement ने अगर एक रिकॉर्ड अपडेट किया तो भी एक बार, आपकी स्टेटमेंट ने अगर 10 रिकॉर्ड अपडेट किए तो भी एक बार. दैट इज अ स्टेटमेंट लेवल ट्रिगर. लेकिन रो लेवल ट्रिगर आपके स्टेटमेंट ने अगर 10 रिकॉर्ड अफेक्ट किए तो ये 10 बार एग्जीक्यूट होगा, और अगर एक ही रिकॉर्ड अपडेट किया तो एक ही बार एग्जीक्यूट होगा. सिंपल. दैट्स अ रो लेवल ट्रिगर एंड स्टेटमेंट लेवल ट्रिगर. सो हाउ यू कन्वर्ट फ्रॉम स्टेटमेंट लेवल टू रो लेवल? By using one extra line for each row. Clear? Now, there are special deleted and inserted table available only for trigger program. Only for the trigger program. Simple. So whenever any table has a trigger, that time whenever you are performing a statement, that time let's say I am updating something. Updating means what? Your age is 30 and I am updating the age 40. Correct? Now usually when you update, there is a no record what was the earlier age. But when you have a trigger, that time we have a access to the two columns, colon new and colon old. So what's the basic benefit of this? Trigger has access to existing value also, and trigger has access to the new value what you have been passed. Very simple. Now here, simply we can say that values colon new. Colon new column is additional column available to you for which new value you have been passed. Okay, let's understand in a simple manner. Just give me a second. Just 1 second. Let me open an Excel sheet to explain you this perfectly. Okay, just taking a time, so we'll understand here only. Okay, now, I think you are able to see the screen, right? So in the screen, you can see that we have a two columns, column old and column new. What is that column old and column new? Now, assuming that you are updating your age from 25 to 30. So in that case, what will happen? Your old value will be the 25 that you can use with the column old. Just give me a second. Something is a problem here. I'm sure the screen is visible to everyone. Okay, just give me a second. My system got hanged. Okay, so I think it is available to you. Now, let's continue here. So let me open a Excel sheet. Okay, now I'm sure you're able to see the Excel sheet. Now let's say I'm having a table and this has a column age. Okay, So here, let's say I am just talking about certain ages, 50, 30, 90, and let's say the 70. Okay. Now here, let's say this age I am updating to 60. So now we have a two column, colon new, which is available in the trigger, colon old, which is also available in the trigger. Now earlier this was 50, so that is stored here, and 60 is stored here. Before going to actual changes, now you have access to both the values, which is the old and new. That's called a colon old and colon new. Simple here. So simply we can say that, okay, let's go there. So when you create a trigger, you have access to two temporary tables. One is inserted and one is deleted tables. So there is nothing called as a deleted. Deleted is nothing but an old value. That's a colon old and colon new. Now for insert, there is a no old value, so it's only new value available. For delete, there is no new value, so only the old value is available. So it is beneficial only for update. So in update, you have a new value what you are updating, and you are having a old value which was existing there. Correct? So based on that, you can have access to the colon old and colon new. How to use a colon old and colon new? When DML statement changes column to a old and new values are visible to executing code. Now if I access, let's say I want to assign the value, old value to some of the variable. So I'll say XYZ assignment operator colon old. So it will be assigned with the old value. So colon old and colon new is available for execution of your program. That is an extra thing only in the triggers. Rest everything is the same. Simple here. So simply now you understood that there are 4 types of triggers. Before statement, before row, after statement, and after row. It's clear to everyone? Now, what is the use of colon old and colon new? What is the use of this? So before going the data into the actual table, you have access to manipulate. Now let's say you have some policy that age should not be less than 40. If somebody provide a age 32, in that case, what will happen? You have that 32 as a new value available to you. So you can change this to 40 and then insert in the table. Or we can talk about a salary. Our company has a policy that nobody will have a salary less than 50,000. And if by mistake somebody inserts a value as 45,000, so you have access to that new value as 45,000. So you can change to 50,000. So now in the new value, it will go to the 50,000. Simple here. So this is the simple concept of triggers. So we talk about procedure. What is the benefit of the procedure? You can write some process. Then function. Function is same like a procedure, but has to be written in some context. Then triggers. Triggers also the same like a procedure, but you cannot call it. It will automatically executed as a part of your DML statement. So simple here. So simply with this, we have finished with all the PLSQL concept. If any doubt, any question, revert back in the office, definitely you'll get the answer. Thank you. And we'll stop it here.